Helen Hart Smith here again from the Heart of the Witch's Path YouTube channel. Hope you're having a good day. I had a pretty decent day, I guess. You know, whatevs. So, I am here today to do a book review. And I have to tell you guys that I'm feeling like I'm on a roll lately. So, I'm a little disappointed in myself, but it's not like a big disappointment. I think I might have talked about this in my last video where I was doing my update. I feel like, you know, I could have used some of this COVID time as perhaps, you know, catching up on some reading, things like that, and that didn't necessarily happen. But I'm not beating myself up over much about that because there were other things that I was dealing with. And so I had set a goal for myself on Goodreads. Does anybody else use Goodreads? I think I'm friends with some of you. Feel free to find me over on Goodreads. I think there's a link in the description box. So if you friend me, I'll friend you back and we can see what we're reading. That'd be really cool because I always like a good book. But anyhow, I had set a goal for myself that I wanted to read 24 books this year. And this is reading some of my library has been like a big thing for me. I'm not a fast reader, and as you'll be able to tell as this story progresses, I'm not a fast reader, but I try to make what I read count and things. So during my final year with the temple, I had to set goals. And so one of the things was I wanted to read, I started really slow, a book a quarter, so a book every 3 months. And so I was able to do that, and so I've kind of upped my ante every year since then. So 24 books in a year, that means 2 books a month. And so I got my work cut out for me, you know, and then I got behind. So I don't know for sure like exactly where I'm at in my book reading, but I know that I am behind for where I should be for this particular time of year. So I'm kind of putting my reading hat on, and in the last week I have completed 4 books now in the last probably 2.5 weeks. Now many of them, well, I don't want to say many. There were 2 specifically that, was it 2? Yes, there were 2 specifically that I had started a long time ago, and so it's just been a slow progression to get through them. But that's okay because I'm getting through them. Like I said, I'm a slow reader, and I think that perhaps I'm a little ADHD and sometimes I need to read more than one book. I want to say that there was a time when I started reading. I started my book reads a while ago, and I like logged a bunch of things and everything else, and there's a currently reading section on Goodreads, and when I was like, okay, I'm really going to use this, like, you know, for a good purpose rather than just like, oh, I like this, read that, blah, 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 whatever. I was like, okay, we need to like curb down this current reading list because there was like double-digit books that I had started, never finished, things like that. And so I really kind of buckled myself down and finished a bunch of those books. I don't even know why I'm talking about this. I'm running on. You know what? Let's get to the heart of this, shall we? I'm sorry. So the book that I want to review today is actually one that I read on my tablet. And so I'm going to show you the book cover, and hopefully it shows up on camera. We'll see. So here we have it. Witchcraft for Tomorrow by Doreen Valiente. So this book, I know I always talk about, like how long the book is and things like that. So I'm going to kind of give you an idea of what it is. I'm going to give you like, there's pages in my reading app, but I don't think it really corresponds well to like a printed book. But I can say, I can look in front of me, because I know that I'm also reading this book at this time, and I have the physical copy, but I seem to be reading my digital copy more. So I'm currently reading this book, Psychic Witch by Matt Oren. The actual physical book is just over 200 pages, and the e-book that I'm reading, it says that it's like 373. So it's not quite the same apples and oranges, if that makes sense. So this particular book is 327 pages. So I'm going to guess that a physical copy is probably really close to about the 200 pages as well. Okay? Maybe under 200 pages. So this book was first published in 1978. And I'm not sure how much this book retails for. I believe it's still in print, because this one says the ebook first published in 2017. So I believe this is still in print. We have a paperback edition that came out in 93. So I will put a link in the description box to Amazon. So if you're interested in this book, after my review, then you can check it out for yourself. Okay, so this book was an important one that I wanted to read for a couple of reasons. The first one being, when I went to my graduation in New Hampshire a few years ago, when I graduated from the Temple of Witchcraft Mystery School, 2 of my classmates did a class that I went to while I was in New Hampshire about Doreen Valiente. And it's not like I didn't know who Doreen Valiente is, and this kind of goes into the second reason that I wanted to read it. I knew that Doreen Valiente is considered an elder in Wiccan circles. She worked very closely with Gerald Gardner. Many considered her to be like the mother of modern day witchcraft, modern Wicca, the New Age movement, the neo-pagan movement. There's so many words that can encompass, but she is like on the forefront of bringing this old new spirituality into the modern times. And so she was, like I said, she was working very closely with Gerald Gardner, and she wrote the Charge of the Goddess, and I believe she wrote the Charge of the God as well. And so I wanted to read something that she had written with the hope of, kind of getting into her mind to see how her mind worked and things like that. And so it's important to look at our elders and learn from them. And I really encourage that with my students as well. They have assignments of doing research projects on elders and presenting them to the rest of their class and things like that. And so I really liked this book. This book was difficult to get through. And it not just because of me being a slow reader or not picking it up. It was difficult to read this because this was written in like the 60s, early 70s, and therefore people spoke differently then than they do now. So her verbology, her vernacular, whatever the word is for how she explains things and stuff like that, it was kind of difficult to to get into at times. And I think that perhaps the way the information was presented could have been done a little more clearly. But the information itself was top notch. And it's so interesting because to read an elder's work, you see how that elder in turn influenced their students or influenced people who read their work and brought that into their practices and things like that. I mean, there were a lot of things that were in this book that I had heard of before, either from reading Temple of Witchcraft stuff, Christopher Penczak stuff, or reading from other current New Age authors. It's so neat because these thoughts were kind of put down on paper for the first time in the 60s and 70s is so deeply threaded into how everybody else is kind of working their paths or their traditions wherever they happen to be. And so I thought that was really, really cool. So yes, I knew or had read some of this information not only once or twice but many times, but it was cool to see kind of like where it came from. So I thought that was really cool. And there were some things in there that I didn't know about. Like there's a form of divination that Doreen used where she used crystals. And she would cast them kind of like bones. And so, excuse me, I thought that was like a really interesting idea. You know me, I'm kind of into crystals and stones. And so it was a passage. And it's not like, having a tarot book where you see, oh, I get this card, what does it mean? And I look it up. No, it was about encouraging you to interpret. And so it's a form of divination that I have put together my own series of stones. And it's like, I believe it's 13 crystals that with specific meanings. There are 7 planet stones, and then there are 6 stones that have to do with ideas like love, hearth, protection, those types of things. And so I have my set, and I just need to start practicing with it a little more and see what I can do with it. So I was really excited about that. And so, like I said, the chapters were kind of run on, put together almost in some instances because, she had the chapter titles had to do with like witch ethics and witch festivals, witches attire, but she didn't limit her discussion, in the witch ethics to just with witch ethics. Like she might have talked about something else. So it was a little odd, but I still understood it and I still got through it. So don't let that be a deterrent from you not reading this book. Okay. Now, one aspect of the book that I really enjoyed like the most was the section at the end of the book that was like her version of a Book of Shadows. And in that section, she walks you through casting a circle and like the preliminary instruction. So she has a description of what it's doing, what it's for, and then the ritual. And so there was the circle, there's rituals there. She talks about the Sabbath rituals. And I thought that, I think what really stood out for me was some of the poetry that's in that section. Doreen Valiente was known for her poetry and for her verse and her rhyme and things like that. And there's some very beautiful poems that she wrote for ritual that's in this section that I just thought were like really beautiful and very much worth checking out. So as far as like the brooms that I would give for this book, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 because there was that bit of, you know, it was kind of hard to get through sections because of how it was written. But as I said, the information was good and therefore made the entire book completely worth it. And so I would highly recommend you reading Witchcraft for Tomorrow by Doreen Valiente. And I would actually, this has inspired me to really look more at some of our elders. It's something that's always kind of been on my radar to do, but I haven't necessarily taken the time to read, okay? And so she has, it looks like there's at least 4 books, including this one that Doreen published. So I would like to look at some of her stuff. I would like to look at some of Gerald Gardner's stuff that I've never, you know, or it's been a long time since I've looked through, you know, things like that. So yeah, I'm going to definitely be looking at our elders and making sure to make that a priority to read their writings in my near future. So if you enjoyed this video or learned something from it, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get back in the swing of video or making and posting videos and apparently learning how to speak because that's a problem. There should be links in the description box for social media. And like I said, I believe I have Goodreads on in that list. And if I don't, then perhaps this will be the time when it becomes in there. How's that? So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you for watching, and thanks for taking the time to walk the path for a little while with me. Until next time, blessed be.